In this video, we are going to be looking at classical unemployment. Classical unemployment, to be simply put, is a situation whereby real wage is greater than equilibrium wage or market clearing wage. However, let's look at the background of the view so that we can really understand what we're talking about. Classical unemployment was developed by a classical economist. And classical economists believe that it is very possible for every economy to fully utilize its resources ranging from human to natural resources. It means that every country can use all their resources. If they have bitumen, they have petroleum, they have gold, they have silver, they can use all of these resources and also use their laborers to convert them to finished goods. This is where people like Keynes come in and say it is not possible for an economy to use all its resources because of some co-operant factor of production, such as uh, capital. The capital enough can restrict entrepreneurs to fully utilize the resources of the economy. I think that will be a discussion for another day. For the classical economists, they believe that it is very much possible for every economy to use all its resources. And when you use all its resources, the output from this will also find ways to get its demand, because every economy has its own self-adjustment mechanism. That is, there is no way you produce in an economy that you not have demand for it. And this their view is basically on sales law. So the classical economics view is basically on sales law that says that supply creates its own demand. That whatever you produce, there must be demand for it. In fact, classical economists believe that it is abnormal for an economy not to attain full employment, because if an economy can use all its resources, it means that it's going to fully engage all its able-bodied who are ready to work. That it is abnormal not to have a full employment. That if there is full employment, sometimes there can be fluctuation. When there is fluctuation, that is when aggregate demand falls, then there is another way through which the full employment can be attained back. And that is why they say that the reduction in wages can bring back full employment. And let's quickly look at the aggregate demand we have here to explain the position of classical economics when the aggregate demand falls, and how slash in wages can bring back the full employment. Now, this is the D aggregate demand, the D1 aggregate demand 1. This is aggregate demand 2. Then this is aggregate supply 1. This is aggregate supply 2. And it claims that they claim that aggregate demand 1, when the aggregate demand falls, it comes this way. You can see this is the equilibrium of aggregate demand 1 and aggregate supply 1. This is the equilibrium, and this is the price. This is the P1. This is the P1. Now, you see what happened now. This the GDP at this level is 12. Now, when the aggregate demand falls to this place, you can see D2 aggregate demand falls. You see what happened? The GDP falls. Why is GDP falling? Because the consumption of people has fallen. People are not demanding like before. It means that firms will also reduce what they are producing, and that is why GDP falls to 10. Now, when this happens, how can they attain this full employment again? How can they employ all the resources again? Then the classical economy says that reduction in wages can bring them back to this position. Now, it says the only thing they can do is just to reduce the wages of the workers. Now, you can see from here now the wage falls to P3. When the wage of people, the salary was slashed to P3, when it was slashed to P3, you see what happened. Number one, what is going to happen? The cost of production will fall, because the entrepreneurs, the firms, will be paying less to the workers. And when they are paying less to the workers, it means the cost of production has fallen. And when the cost of production falls, it will give the entrepreneurs capacity to produce more. And when they produce more, believing that every supply we have is demand according to sales law, that more output they produce we have is demand. And when it has its demand, what is going to happen? The GDP of the economy will bounce back. When the GDP economies bounce back, you now say that from P3, if you check the new equilibrium now, you are going to have it as here. Then at this point now, even at aggregate demand 2 falls, then the GDP rises back to 12, and it's now the same thing with the initial GDP. So the full employment later, attained here, because the price, the wages of laborers have been slashed down so that they can produce more. So when they produce more, when they slash down the wages of the laborers, they have the capacity to produce more, and whatever they produce according to sales law, we have demand. That is why they have their GDP back to 12. So that is how they attain their full employment. Although this it seems not realistic. It seems not realistic. Now, come back to the unemployment. The classical economics now says that at this point when the wages are slashed to P3, there will be some people who will not want to take the wages. Those people will now be referred as those who are voluntarily unemployed. Why is it voluntarily unemployed? Because they are willingly not accepting the offer given to them by the entrepreneurs, by the firms. They are the one who are saying they are not ready to work because of the slashed in the wages. So it is not involuntary. They are willing not to work because of the slashed in wages. That is why the classical economists believe that there is only voluntary unemployment. You can simply see what we do here. See what we do here. When the price falls from P1 to P3, you can see at this point now, you see the difference here. The difference is that if you look at this point now, this is the equilibrium. Now, when the price falls, meaning that the real wage here, this P1 here, the P1 we are using, the P1 at this point, at this page, represents real wage. And why this one represents clearing wage? So the clearing wage, at the clearing wage, some people will not be employed. But at this point, those who are not employed at this clearing wage were employed at this point. So these people now, they are not ready to work. So this is just the demand here. The demand here is not up to the supply. The supply is more at the initial stage, real wage. When real wage is greater than this particular one, then the difference between this point and this point is the unemployment. These are the people that are voluntarily unemployed. They are the one that are not ready to take the P3 wages. Please subscribe and get more of our video. Thank you.